Two miners named Joseph Southwood and William Kayser were returning from a long walk, setting rabbit traps in the sandhills near Redhead Beach, Newcastle, New South Wales, at 2 p.m. on the 3rd of August, 1930, when something on a hillside 300 yards from the beach, shining white, catching the sun, intrigued them. They investigated and discovered a skeleton laying on its side in the long grass, the decaying tatters of women's clothing adorning it. A small 9-carat gold signet ring encircled a finger bone, and a gold watch was still on the wrist bones. The skull was detached from the rest of the skeleton, which had sticks laying over it. Dark bobbed hair remained on the scalp, and the teeth were in good condition, indicating the dead woman may have been young. Initial estimates put her age between 30 and 40. A size 5 pair of tan shoes in 2 tones, with single strap fastenings, lay nearby, with several small pearl beads. 2 cheap brooches were also found, the first with a spray of artificial flowers under glass, the second with 2 tiny artificial roses, as well as a pink or red straw hat trimmed with green leaves and forget-me-nots. A comb and a piece of paper with barely legible printing on it were also recovered. The words on the paper were a song, deciphered to read, "Where is my wandering boy tonight?" A tobacco packet and a matchbox were also recovered by police. There were no clear paths across the sandhills, so it was sheer luck that the pair noticed the skeleton. In winter hardly anyone ventured across the dunes. The men informed the police, who arranged for the skeleton to be moved to the Newcastle morgue. There was no obvious signs of foul play. The remains were thought to have been laying in the open for up to a year. Animals had cleaned the flesh completely away. Dogs and foxes were known to run wild in the sandhills. Missing persons reports were conned for possible identification with the mystery bones. A dentist examined the teeth, and in his opinion the remains were not those of a woman, but rather a girl, between 15 and 18 years of age. The jewellery found with the bones was shown to 3 women. The first 2 failed to identify the articles, but the third woman did identify it as her daughter's property. The week passed as police made inquiries and pursued leads. By the 11th of August, police were confident they knew the identity of the girl. At first they would only say she was 14 years old and came from the north of the state. How she came to die was still a mystery. Tests on the bones ruled out arsenic poisoning. The dirt where the bones was found was then tested and showed signs of arsenic and strychnine. The arsenic was thought to be naturally occurring, but the strychnine was now believed to be the cause of death. No bottle had been located near the remains, which made suicide less plausible. Police continued their search for a close male relative of the girl, but without luck. Then on the 31st of August, a fisherman noticed a man in a cave in the hills at Redhead Beach. He called out, but getting no response, went in and found the man dead, a bottle of poison beside him. This second tragedy, it was discovered, had nothing to do with the mystery skeleton. The man was swiftly identified as a 31-year-old named John Henry Leonard, who had worked as a fitter at the Walsh Island dockyard, but who had been unemployed for months since being laid off. He had committed suicide. Finally, on the 8th of September 1930, the police revealed that the bones were those of May Doris Schubert, of Mitchell Island in the Taree district. She had left Cupernock on the 5th of December 1929 with her father William to go and stay in Newcastle. As she was supposed to be placed in a home, her mother did not worry about the girl's absence for some time. William Schubert had returned home with the empty hamper in which May had taken her clothing, and all seemed well. After not receiving any letters or other communications from her daughter, Mary Schubert questioned her husband, who said he had taken May as far as Sydney. Concerned, the woman contacted the police to say that May was missing. When asked where he had taken May, William told police that he could not remember the address. He was told that if he failed to provide the address, he would be taken down to Newcastle and made to point out the building. After this interview, William had departed, the police tracing him to Nambucca Heads, where the trail went cold. He was thought to have gone from there to somewhere in Queensland. It was revealed that the reason the girl had been sent away to Newcastle was to give birth. Her mother had noticed telltale symptoms, for Mary was a mother of 7 children herself. May was examined by a doctor who confirmed she was 3 months pregnant. William said that when he questioned his daughter, she broke down and cried, begging him not to tell the police what had occurred. One night she had gone to the Mitchell Island post office. There a tall, dark man, a stranger on a bicycle, had spoken to her, saying, "I'm looking for a girl like you." He then pushed her to the ground and raped her. The inquest into the death began on the 18th of September 1930 at Newcastle Courthouse. The circumstances of the discovery and identification of the body were detailed. A Taree dentist confirmed the teeth were those of May Schubert. May had been born on the 11th of July, 1915. Elizabeth Ann Bailey, who lived at Dudley, near Redhead Beach, testified that in early December a man aged about 50, 5'7", clean-shaven, and of a thin build, had called at her house at 8 a.m. asking for a glass of water, and was given a cup of tea. He threw the tea away, saying he was past drinking and eating. When he told the woman that he had no money, she gave him 2 shillings and advised him to go to the Salvation Army. Owen Matheson, who had once worked with Schubert at Cupernock, saw the man in Newcastle in December 1929. Schubert said he was in the city looking for work, and made no mention of May. When he returned to Taree, he learned that Schubert had got himself in a mess, having taken his daughter to Newcastle, but now nobody knew where she was. Joseph Graham, a dairyman, the husband of May's eldest sister Emily, said that his father-in-law had told him at Christmas 1929 that he had wandered around Newcastle until he was broke, then tried to poison himself, but hadn't taken enough poison to be fatal. William's 17-year-old son Oswald, a dairy hand of Cabbage Tree Island, invited his father to come and live with him in February, but William refused. On one occasion his father had threatened to leave and kill himself. Another son, 22-year-old Harold, had a long talk with his father when he found him crying, who told him he had wandered about, sleeping on the beach at Newcastle some nights, and going without food for days. He asked what was troubling his father, who replied, "You do not know. I have worry. You will all find out in time." Evidence was given by Cuthbert Walker, a chemist of Taree, that William Schubert had purchased 1 dram of strychnine on the 5th of December 1929. He said he intended to use it to poison foxes. Then Henrietta Webster, May's 25-year-old sister, revealed a terrible family secret. There had been no dark stranger who had raped May. She had said the man responsible for getting her sister pregnant was either her uncle or her own father. Henrietta then went on to divulge that William Schubert had sexually molested her when she was about 14 years of age, and that she had told her mother and warned her younger sister to be careful. Maud Adelaide Schubert, 21, another daughter, confirmed that her father had tried to interfere with her as well. She knew what he meant to do, causing her to leave home when she was 14. Mary Jane Schubert said the revelations had broken up the family, and she had not seen her husband since February. She was a tragic figure with head downcast and shoulders stooped as she gave her evidence in a whisper. At the conclusion of the inquest, the finding was handed down that May Doris Schubert had died by strychnine poisoning, administered by her father William. He was still missing, and police across Australia were on alert to find him. On the afternoon of the 29th of September 1930, a country policeman, Constable Vardy, observed a man working at weeding using a hoe on a banana farm at North Tumbulgum, near Murwillumbah. Checking the photo in his pocket, he was sure the man was the much sought-for William Schubert. Vardy was the only policeman in the Tumbulgum district, and had been approached by the owner of the farm, Archibald Legg, who believed his employee could be Schubert. Vardy approached silently from behind and addressed the man. "Hello, Bill Schubert." The man turned around quickly. "Eh, what's that?" The policeman continued with his tactic. "Hello, Bill Schubert. Don't you remember me?" "I'm not Bill Schubert," the man replied. "That's not my name. I'm Jack Brown." "I think you are Bill Schubert. Anyway, put down your hoe and come with me." The man did as he was asked, but struggled to avoid being handcuffed. He admitted that he was William Schubert. He had been working on the farm for 4 months, known by his alias of Brown. He said he assumed the arrest had to do with the girl. Doris did it herself, he said. She took the poison as a suicide. On the 1st of October in Murwillumbah, Schubert was formally charged with murder, on or about the 10th of December, 1929. From time to time he shook his head and muttered, "This is terrible." His trial for murder at Sydney Central Criminal Court was extremely brief, taking just 1 day, the 27th of November, 1930. Schubert said that he and May lived with his wife and youngest son Walter Clarence, who was 10 years old, up until the 5th of December 1929. That day he took May away. The first night they stayed at Fotheringham's Hotel in Taree. They slept in the same room but in different beds, he said, because May was afraid to be alone. They took the train to Newcastle and arrived the following afternoon. Here they stayed in one room for 4 or 5 nights. Schubert claimed his daughter slept in the bed and he slept on the floor. They spent their days promenading along the beaches at Newcastle. Then his daughter said she wanted to spend the day in King Edward Park. He had the landlady, Mrs. Ellen McGregor, make sandwiches for them, and with a bottle of water they set out for a long walk. They sat down under a tree to eat the food, and May asked for some water. While he was fetching the bottle, unbeknown to him, she took poison, and sat talking to him for a few minutes before telling him what she had done. She asked him not to leave her, and said she felt sick. Then she started having convulsions which grew worse and worse until she died. Her father then slept next to the corpse that night. In the morning when he woke it was raining, so he covered the body with an overcoat and some branches and left. It was just after that when he encountered Elizabeth Bailey and asked for a drink. A day or 2 later he returned to the boarding house and told Mrs. McGregor that an old couple had agreed to take May in. He borrowed some money from her and returned home to Mitchell Island. When questioned where May had obtained the poison, which he was known to have purchased, he said she must have slipped it out of his pocket without him knowing. "I didn't poison my daughter," he pleaded. "When I loved her so well, why should I have killed her?" The jury found him guilty, and Schubert was sentenced to death. On the trip to Long Bay Jail afterwards he was so calm that he fell asleep in the van on the way. His wife, on the other hand, was on the verge of hysteria and waited for the train home to Taree, sitting on some steps, rocking back and forth, weeping in grief. She had made no effort to speak with her husband. An appeal was made in February 1931, claiming misdirection by the judge over rejecting material evidence and giving an erroneous definition of circumstantial evidence, which was dismissed by the full court. Executions were becoming rarely used in New South Wales at the time. After 1924 only 5 men hanged, and Schubert was not one of them. On the 9th of March 1931 the New South Wales State Cabinet commuted the death sentence to one of life imprisonment. Schubert would not live long, however. His crime was so revolting that he was shunned and despised by other prisoners, though it seemed to little concern him. He never showed any remorse or sorrow for what he had done. At Goulburn Reformatory on the 7th of January 1936, he died at the age of 57, the cause being given as heart failure. Mary Jane Schubert passed away at Cupernock on the 27th of March 1943, aged 61. She was stricken while writing a letter and died shortly after.